Welcome, everyone, to the Pacific Northwest Market Update. We're going to go over the January USDA S&D and also seeded acres report. Today we have Trudi Allenbaugh, Shane Riebel, and myself, Randall Olstead. Before we get going any further than that, we have a disclaimer, and Trudi, could you help me with that?
Sure will. As always, wanted to remind everyone the views and opinion of this program are of the hosts and are for informational purposes only. There's substantial risk in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading.
Thank you, Trudi. Well, I think we're going to have to leave the depression of the report away and start with canola. And we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the overall report. But, I think we need to at least start off with a little bit something that's not so disappointing.
Yeah, maybe not. Canola survived pretty unscathed in the bar fight. We came out with a black eye, but that was about it. Two-sided story. Beans were pretty unchanged. I look at that as the base of what went on today for canola. A lot of things were unchanged. They did move some exports, ratcheted down exports a good chunk and threw it into stocks, so that increased stocks to use ratio. And I think that's what really kind of weighed us canola down. We're able to hold on to a lot of our gains that we've taken over the last week. But like I said, we didn't get out unscathed. We'll kind of see, most of the reason for that was a little, tit for tat on the China deal. We were going to do all this trade. Now, we're getting some of it done, but not as much as we want. So, Trudi, we were talking before this meeting about, are we going to start seeing some of that ratcheting? That was, kind of what you led on.
I saw a note that there was continued talks between China and Canada. How is that going to support the canola price if that continues?
It should really help. So their liaison is over there on the 13th of this week, so tomorrow, all the way through this week, and that's the first time since 2017
Okay. I didn't realize it had been that long. Okay.
Yeah, Trudeau was the last one to go over back then, so I think it's everybody's viewing it as a hugely positive thing. They have nowhere to go but up on trade, especially with canola. So It'll be a big help if they can get anything done. So very positive.
Showing that they're even just talking to each other, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
Sounds like a plan there. At least that's some good news. Any canola leaving the northern hemisphere is going to be a good thing for us. Okay, I can't ignore it any longer. The report came out today, and I'm going to let Trudi kind of start off with it. But the big thing to me is corn. Look at the numbers there. But, I'll let you take it over from here.
I think we were all looking forward to this podcast and all the positive things we were going to say about the decrease in yield, the increase in exports. Corn's going to be supportive to wheat, and absolutely the opposite of that happened. I mean, it really did catch all of the industry off guard. I don't think there was any corn number that wasn't beyond the average analyst guess. U.S. production, yield, ending stocks, and quarterly stocks, all bearish. The only true neutral number that came out was production for Brazil and Argentina for corn, I believe, were unchanged. Of course, that was offset with an increase of production in China. So, just...
Can I hold you up a little sec?
Please do.
Corn. Why is corn so important?
Corn's important because we got to have a support for wheat to go in the feed channels. And, we're going to get into that a little bit we've been watching this corn wheat spread, and it's been really actually pretty tight. And that needed to happen because of the cumbersome balance sheet in wheat. It needed to be there so that we get rid of some of that. And we were talking about wheat prices being where they're at because corn values have remained really firm. So again, you go through this, getting ready for this report. They didn't do any adjustment to yield, they being USDA, in the December report. So again, all analysts were believing we've had, really supportive corn exports. This was just a 1-2 gut punch in what everybody's looking at, and I think the only reason why I think corn wasn't limit down today was because they did increase the feed and domestic use a little bit, saving grace of some of that balance sheet that it wasn't even bigger than what they're projecting.
Yeah, you had record yields, you had record production. I mean, it was just it was over the top.
Yeah, when I wrote down some of the numbers, they put the yield was at 186 bushels per acre. They went to 186.5 record yield, increased harvested acres by another
415,000.
Yeah. So I mean, and everything on that, the last 3 USD reports, they have amazingly found more harvested acres of corn, harvested or planted. So, this, when you go back and look at all the analysts and look at all the numbers, and it's like there's, are we really producing this much corn? And then it just gets bigger. I don't know how to digest all that, but we are going to certainly see in the next couple of weeks how the marketplace accounts for those numbers and where it goes from there in the global stance of things too. So soybeans was really probably the least amount of movement in this crop report. And Randy, if you want to touch on wheat, maybe to start here, we can talk
I was
about
just going
those.
to kind of guess every class of wheat was actually increased as far as carryover stocks, except white wheat. White was kind of the shining star, which they increased export 10 million bushels, they decreased carryover down to still a fairly large 77 million bushel. But you look at wheat, how much it increased across the board. We were anticipating to see 1 million acres less seeded acres that came into like 150,000. The acreage report, though, could be a little bit deceiving because Texas, Oklahoma, and even into like Arkansas, they raise wheat for pasture. Yeah. Okay, so you could see a lot of disappearance coming in maybe March when they take them off the cattle or take the cattle off the wheat and let it grow out. But I guess we'll have to wait and see what if the values are as such as they are today, the cattle are going to stay on and the disappearance in acres are going to go.
So when you see that, they'll feed for a certain amount and then it still goes into a production. It goes into
you can pull the cattle off.
Adjustment.
Yep.
Okay.
And you look at $3,000 cattle, right? That's a reason why they're probably planting pasture, and that's probably why they went up so high. Yeah, because across the northern tier, it looked like every state was down except those southern tier states. And so there could be a little bit of silver lining there, but at the end of the day, it's not going to move the needle. I mean,
and white wheat planted acres was a little bit lower.
Yes,
correct?
it was. Yeah. Yeah, everything was on the white wheat side. It looked positive, but even saying it's positive, you still got 77 million acres or million bushels carryover, which is substantial. We got routine business. We're not the cheapest wheat in the world anymore. Argentina, the Argentina crop was up 2.7 million metric tons to 27.5 million. Right?
I didn't realize
wow.
That I saw a stat that Argentina production crop for wheat was up 50% from their last year's crop. That's pretty substantial.
Yeah. And then the only, actually they considered it a bullish number is that they didn't increase the Australia crop.
Right.
And it's at 37 million. Everybody thought there was going to be a 40 in front of it. And it still could. Yeah. But, that's kind of where it's at now. But the old fact of the matter is, the world is washed with wheat.
Yeah.
Okay. And we just got to be after the bushels and the demand. And even with the volatility today, we saw a 21-cent trading range in futures. Just today. And white wheat is unchanged, $5.90. We've been $5.90 since December 7th. And it's just like, okay, we're good.
We're good. Yeah, I was really shocked, and actually shocked on how much wheat had held its own in the futures too. I mean, corn closed down 24 cents, and wheat was down. What did it end up 7, 8?
Yep.
So that's pretty substantial. I guess my thing is the big question mark, because the report just happened today, is where does wheat go from here? Because that corn wheat spread has been so narrow. Does wheat hold its own? Is it cheap enough? And the big, I guess, answer to that question is how low is corn going to go? Right. How cheap does it need to be to start diminishing this balance sheet? One other thing that I thought was interesting, just kind of gleaning through all these USDA numbers, they called this report the data dump, and it is. We had stocks report, planting report, WASDE report, but I thought one thing that was interesting in the corn, and it is probably pretty traditional this time of year, how much corn is still on the farm versus in a commercial house. And it made me think, okay, how this could be the catalyst of what keeps corn prices from going just drastically lower to try to get that off the farm. I mean,
yeah, the grower hold it, for a period of time. And, I think you're right there. I mean, I think the same thing goes with wheat. I mean, right now, if we're the mirror of the market, we're probably sitting at about 75% bought in, right? So there's only 25% of the crop left to buy. In the last 10%, it's almost impossible to buy, right? So then you're really looking at 15% of the crop, and we have to get until harvest. I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing white wheat as stable as it is. Because, we're after the first of the year, the taxes have all been paid. We got spring coming, but it's a couple months away. It's going to get this, it's going to be pretty quiet.
Yeah. My only other question on the catalyst of the white wheat, because I do believe right now it is the shining star. What do you think about last report? They took exports from 190 to 200. Now they took this report 200 to 210. I was really optimistic that we were going to be over 190. Was still pretty hopeful that we could hit 200. Do you think 210?
Well, we're at 160 right now.
Yeah.
Unless we start seeing more cancellations, which I don't see that happening. But China, they
yeah.
love to do that.
Yeah.
But the rest of them don't. And I really think that's kind of baked in. So we're 80. If you figure that number, that 160, we're 85% bought in. So that next 15%, I think it's possible. I mean, it's still questionable, but I still think it's achievable.
You think we can hit 210?
I think we can do it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
But-
and I think the price is showing us that, it's still, somebody still wants it.
Yeah, and I think the one thing prior to the report today, again, we've got this now, we got to see the follow through of what happens, but really have seen, even with the ample supplies and ample stocks, world values have remained fairly firm. Australia hasn't been, cheapening
disciplined.
Yeah, they've been very disciplined, not cheapening up their price. So I'm going to agree with you. I think that we're going to be real close. So I don't know if we can make 210, but we're going to be real close.
Okay.
Someone's got to be the other side of it, right?
That's true. That's true. There's bulls and bears, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well,
It makes me nervous when Randy and I completely agree on, and Shane too. We all agree on the same thing. Someone's got to be the other side of this.
Yeah. We're all in trouble, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I guess, right now, the numbers are really bearish. It's a report. Rule of thumb is a report's only good for a day, right? And then we all worried about something else tomorrow. But as we look forward, is our outlook. There's a lot of people are talking about, what do we do? We don't like the pricing, right? How do we help, enhance money into the growers' hands, or at least give them an outlook? I mean, what's our strategy, or what's your strategy going forward?
I still think the outlook is, especially for white wheat. I mean, I guess we got to dial in a little bit to the white wheat world. I do believe white wheat is still going to be a stable market. If you look at the futures and even everything that's happened today, and maybe a more bearish tone to it, you still have funds extremely short. They're short corn. So now all of a sudden you think, are they going to get, where's that corn wheat spread going to be? Are they going to start putting some of that more position on? I think that going forward, you still got to look for the market is giving us opportunities. Those opportunities might be in a little narrower range, but you got to look for the futures, trade some options. We've got our flex contract. I think cash is going to remain firm, and you got to just keep layering in. Anytime you see when we talk about market rallies and rewarding it, what used to be a 60, 70, 80 cent rally is now range bound into that 30 cent, 20 cent, and you got to just look for those opportunities.
I was kind of going in a different direction,
Okay.
but I was thinking, when are we going to kill the Kansas crop? Because we always kill the Kansas crop at least once a year.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for, but you're spot on.
Yeah.
Hey, don't expect the 60 cent rally. There's too much supply over us. If we see a 15 to 20 cent run, I think we got to take advantage of that.
And Randy's right. We haven't even began to trade winter weather for this Kansas crop. I mean, we've got a lot of weather, a lot of geopolitical. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. So, I mean, as bearish as this report is today that we're talking about, all hope is not lost. There's going to be some opportunity. We just got to be ready to take advantage of it when it's there.
And yeah, you're right about the geopolitics. Look what's happening in Venezuela. Venezuela doesn't raise a lot of wheat, but what's next is that Iran are we going to start giving wheat away into the Middle East? I mean, there's a lot of different things with all the abundant supply we have in the world today, and the politics that go along with it. But Shane, what's your opinion there?
I think we'll trend sideways for the next month or so, and then opportunities will come. I believe that exporters are going to need to jump in and buy some come March. Range is kind of my gut feeling. And I think they're going to have to be on the advantageous side of pushing the bid a little bit just to get something done. We talk about what we're already bought in now, and those who have it have the ability to hold it. So it's kind of in their hands on the, the short term of that, and opportunities are readily available on the flex side levels and situations. Definitely a lot of opportunities with this volatility in both directions. So.
I thought it was interesting too when you start looking at canola in general. I mean, it's the acres not only in the Pacific Northwest, but throughout the whole United States, and having more. If China buys it from Canada or it buys it from the United States, it's coming out of the North America. Right. And so our border between Canada and the United States is pretty liquid. Right. So, that could definitely give us some more support.
Yeah.
I would look at. Right. But, there again, I think it's all about picking a number because I still think there's going to be a lot of canola being planted.
Oh, yeah.
But
And I think it's a little bit soon because we're in winter time and we're thinking about what we're going to plant in spring. I think it also, another thing we got to note is keep an eye on some of this new crop number. There's not a lot of demand behind that right now, but that number I think is supported if you look basis wise or maybe a futures opportunity. We got to start a little further outlook on those rallies, getting some HDAs put on, at least put it in an order in, having that number working for us. It may not have maybe it does have a 6 in front of it. Maybe you ratchet in those orders, but I think we got to make sure that we're looking a little further out too.
you got to have the order working because
Yeah.
it's going to be short lived.
Yeah.
It's going to hit and it's going to be gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would agree 100%. Okay. Well,
Oh, sorry. One more thing. I just wanted to, if you were probably going to just do that, but a reminder that our grower meeting is Thursday,
Beat me to
the 15th, either Moscow or Northern Quest. Please, if you haven't already, RSVP and please join us. The whole field staff puts a great amount of effort and a lot of data for you. We'll have marketing updates.
and we're going to change all of our slides after today. We were a little bit,
Yeah.
anyway, had a different opinions,
Yeah.
but that's what the
But
report
yeah.
does.
But look forward to seeing you all there.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.